Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Routes y Raíces. We're here with another episode. I am Kimmy Abduli, and I have my co-host, co-podcaster,
Jennifer.
And today we want to address a kind of a trend, or maybe a developing trend or ongoing issue that we're kind of seeing with USCIS that we just want to talk about and make people aware of. And specifically, it has to do with people who are going through the immigration process and applying for certain immigration benefits, and how delays within the agency and just kind of fraudulent and deceitful practices by the agency, USCIS, are becoming kind of a trend, and I think people need to know about it. And so whenever people apply for an immigration benefit, they're going to apply generally with U.S. citizenship and immigration benefits. And in particular, I want to address people who are applying for green cards, known as adjustment of status for the most part. And that usually means that it's somebody who is here on some sort of lawful status already, whether it's a student visa, visitor visa, something like that, and may be married to a U.S. citizen or have citizen children who can petition for them. So they file an application to change that status from non-immigrant visa, like a temporary visitor type of status, to a permanent resident status. Now, people can apply for this even if their visa or stay has expired, which is kind of a common experience for a lot of people, that maybe they entered on a visa expired, but because they entered on that lawful status, they can still file for residency even years later sometimes. And historically, this really hasn't been an issue. As long as somebody was taking the steps to adjust their status and try to gain lawful status, it's been fine. Like USCIS has allowed it as long as they don't have other disqualifying factors. The fact that their visa may have expired in and of itself was not a problem. But now we're starting to see a trend of that becoming an issue where if the visa has previously expired, these individuals are getting into trouble. And another avenue that is becoming problematic is for people who may be in lawful status on that visa status when they apply for residency. But if that visa expires while they're waiting for a decision, they're also getting into trouble, even though it was through no fault of their own. So whenever people are applying for adjustment of status benefits, just so that everybody's aware, this is not something that you apply for and like the next day you have it. Usually it takes months and months and sometimes more than a year to get a decision on this. Like it's going to be pending with USCIS for a while. So there's a lapse of time that the applicant doesn't really have any control over because the applications are with the government, and it's usually the government that is behind on being able to issue a decision on this. These applications have always taken what I feel like is forever and a day to adjudicate, but now even more so for several other reasons. One, government shutdowns. So we had one back last fall that lasted over a month?
I thought it was like 2 months.
2 months?
Shy of 2 months.
Yeah, so that lasted a while. That whole time, they weren't processing applications or they weren't scheduling interviews and really moving anything forward. And then there was another shutdown, in February, I think?
January to February,
earlier this year. So again, that created another delay because during that time, again, applications weren't really being processed, appointments weren't being scheduled, so everything was kind of on hold, adding to an already lengthy delay. Which means that somebody that was here on a valid visa, for example, and filed for this is even more likely to be out of status while they're waiting for their green card because of these additional delays. Second, the problem that I have with this is that people pay for these benefits and they don't always get what they have paid for. So each application has its own filing fee. And when you're applying for adjustment of status, for example, there's going to be at least 3 applications that you're filing, each of which has a fee, maybe 4. 2 that are required is the petition that the U.S. citizen or qualifying family member is going to file. That application, the I-130, filing fee is $675. And then there's the green card application, the adjustment of status application, that is $1,440. So together that's $2,115, and it's just those 2 applications.
And that doesn't include attorney's fees, by the way.
This is not attorney's fees. This is what the government charges. On top of that, if you want to apply for a work permit so that you can at least work while your application is pending, that is an additional $260. That's $2,375. Oh, so work permits have different filing fees depending on what category you're filing under. So petition plus residency application plus work permit, you're at $2,375 already. Now, if you want to also apply for a travel travel document so that you can travel outside the country while your application is pending, that is an additional $630. We got $3,005, and don't forget that $5.
Because they don't forget the $5, let me tell you.
Don't miss that $5. So it's $3,005 to apply for all of those things. And if you're wondering, well, why do they need a travel document? So the issue is that once you file your green card application, if you leave the country, that application is automatically deemed abandoned. So the only way to preserve that is to have a travel document so that you're saying that, okay, I'm not abandoning my application. I just have, some family emergency that came up that I need to leave the country for, or some, work training that I needed to attend some conference for, or some reason that I needed to go and then come back. It's going to be this short visit. But you have to be traveling on a travel document. Otherwise, that application is deemed abandoned. So this is $3,000 in fees that we're talking about. Now, what is happening is that work permits and travel documents are not being issued. I've noticed that pretty much every case that we have filed since last summer of 2025, where, we file all these applications together, none of them have gotten work permits or travel documents. And granted, travel documents were always taking a little bit longer than work permits, but now, not even the work permits. So they're taking this money and not issuing the documents.
And so just for the work permit, it's not like these people don't want to work. If they have the opportunity to work, they would work. But if they don't have a work permit, they can't work, right?
Or the government doesn't want them to work.
Exactly.
Or, people say that they shouldn't be working without documents. Okay, fine. Well, I'm asking for permission to work, and now you're not issuing work authorization, but you're also not giving me a reason why you're not issuing it.
Right. And what I'm getting at is, so for people who are very hardline anti-immigration, right? Or at least do it the right way. So these people are trying to do it the right way, and they're trying to get permission to work. They cannot get it, or they're not getting it. They're not being granted. As Kimmy said, they've applied since last year and they haven't received their work permit, correct?
Right. This is just up in the air. They just took the money and absconded with it.
Right. So think about this. How does that affect the person who says, I want people to do things the right way? How does it affect you? Well, it affects you because that's potentially money that can go into this large pot, right? We're talking about taxes, right?
Tax money, yes. Okay.
Yes. So if these people were given the opportunity to work, they would contribute to taxes, right? Put into the tax pot.
And they do.
Right. Well, okay, go ahead.
I was going to say they do, but they do with I-10s or, having to work under the table, basically. So they still pay into taxes, but this would give them an opportunity to do so lawfully.
Right. So, and I'm focusing on the lawfully because there's people saying do it the right way, right? So they're doing everything the right way. They want this work permit to be able to work. Essentially, when somebody works, they're on payroll. What happens on payroll? There are things being deducted from your check. Federal taxes, state taxes, Social Security, and I want to say it's Medicare. They contribute to that pot, but they don't receive anything from that pot. Correct. And the moment they're not being able to contribute to that pot, how does that affect you? Well, because it's less money for the pot that you benefit from as an American citizen.
Right. It just means that your Social Security benefits or whatever it may be is going to be smaller because the pot isn't big enough.
Right. So if you think that it doesn't, in a way, indirectly affect you, everything is always connected. And these group of people who want to work but are not giving the permission to work by means of a work permit are not contributing to something that you benefit from.
Well, they're being prevented from contributing to something.
Exactly. And it's not by choice. It's not by choice.
But I just think it's crazy that they expect people to pay for these benefits or for these, work authorization, travel document, whatever it may be, and then don't do their part in actually issuing the document. And that wouldn't happen in any other setting. You don't go into a restaurant and order a sandwich and then not expect to get the sandwich. You would have, listen, there would be
some hangry people.
Scene. Police might be called at that restaurant. You would be upset. There would be a whole showdown because they took your money and didn't give you the fucking sandwich that you ordered.
Right.
But for some reason, in the immigration context, it's totally acceptable that they do this, that they just take the money and then don't actually issue the benefits that they charged individuals for.
And that applies to anything, really. Like what Kimmy was saying, she put a food example, but there's no area anywhere where you pay for something and you don't receive something.
Not without a problem.
Right.
Not without a big fucking
Not
problem.
without a problem. If you pay for something you're going to get something in return, whether it be a service, whether it be advice, whether it be food, whether it be clothes, whether it be like a house, whatever you pay for, you're going to get something in return. And apparently here, it's the opposite.
Nothing. And let's say it's one of these crazy cases where somehow the green card is issued before the work permit or the travel document, so that they don't need those benefits anymore because they got the green card. Those fees are non-refundable.
Right.
The $260 and the $630 that they paid for those two other applications, that they don't get that money back. And even if a green card isn't issued, they don't get any of that money back. I have a problem with that. You know, that they are kind of taking these money or enriching themselves in whatever ways, whoever is getting this money and however it's being distributed. It seems very deceptive. Like there are some deceptive practices being engaged here by USCIS. And it's very abusive to the people who are trying to go through the system lawfully and trying to obtain these benefits legally. And these practices are considered completely okay in this country of, I don't know, what is it, law and order or something? Are we still doing that? It doesn't feel like it.
We are a country of law and order, premised on law and order.
Are we
Doesn't feel like that sometimes.
No.
It doesn't feel like it. And it's sad because you think like, hey, this doesn't affect me. These are a bunch of immigrants. They don't affect me, like illegals or whatever term you guys use to make yourself feel better. But everything's connected. It's going to affect you. Just look at your grocery prices too. There's a reason why everything's expensive right now.
Grocery prices, gas prices, housing prices, like everything. And it's not the immigrants' fault.
Right.
These are people who are really just trying to do what is being expected of them and what's being asked of them. And even when they do try to do it the right way, the system just continues to abuse them.
Yes. And in terms of labor, I did see a stat recently, which I thought was rather intriguing. There's always an argument like they're taking our jobs. I think a farmer came out recently, and I will post a link to that video when I find it. I'll post it on a YouTube page so you can see it yourself and, analyze it yourself. But essentially what's happening is I think there's like 400,000+ farming jobs available. And only like 165 Americans apply for the job. Like, okay, here are the jobs that you're supposedly say, quote unquote, illegals are stealing from you. Definitely available right now, but nobody wants to take those jobs. And I'm not saying that immigrants are limited to those jobs, but I'm saying they're willing to take those jobs because
no one's fighting over harvesting tomatoes.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Nobody wants to be outside in hot burning Florida picking oranges.
No one's fighting over roofing jobs in Arizona in July.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
I mean, I thought there'd be like lines of people applying for these jobs.
Empty positions, and turns out most people don't want those jobs.
Right. So,
but they do still want roofs, and they do still want food.
And they want it at a rather cheap price.
And you want it at a cheap price, at an affordable price, and all of those things are impacted when you impact the labor force in this way, which is being impacted. But just, again, going back to the main point on this, there's been delays, more so than usual, in the immigration application process, and now I'm just seeing a trend in these scammy practices of them really just continuing to abuse this already very vulnerable population. And it's unfortunate, and I feel like unless we have like real immigration reform, this is just going to keep happening.
And another thing that's been happening a lot recently, and I've seen it happen to other colleagues, is interviews are being set for USCIS, and the applicant is not receiving notice of the interview, or their attorney, they're not receiving notice of interviews. And what happens then? Well, what happens is that not going to an interview is a big no-no, okay?
Right. If you don't show up, they deem it as abandoned. And
right. They deem it as abandoned. And if you have, specifically now with changes that took effect, I believe it was March of this year, if you don't have a very reasonable excuse, and it's very limited with the excuse that they will be accepting, it will be deemed abandoned, and you will be issued an NTA by USCIS, okay? If you miss an interview, the chances are very high that you will now get a notice to appear. That the applicant who is trying to do the right thing the right way will now receive a notice to appear. They have to go to court. So again, if you want to do the things the right way, then it should be fair. It should be fair on both ends, whether it be the government agency or the applicant, right?
You have to be operating in good faith. And honestly, the good faith is completely lacking, in my opinion, in this process. Like the applicant I think most of the time, let's say 99% of the time, because nothing's in absolutes, seeks these benefits and is applying in good faith. But that good faith is not being returned by USCIS. A lot of their practices are far from good faith.
Right. And so what I'm getting at is if these people are doing everything the right way, but on the receiving end, it's not doing everything the right way, then where is this principles of a just country that we live in, right?
And where's the incentive to even bother to apply for the benefits that you qualify for? Like if you're just going to drag me around in this process and scam me out of thousands of dollars, why the hell would I be paying and even trying? Then let me just not do anything. I'm just going to stay in the status that I've had. In some scenarios, depending on the situation, maybe that person who's here on a temporary visa might choose to just leave. But then you create these scenarios where they're in a relationship with or married to somebody who's from here. So now you've created a whole issue in a marriage or a family dynamic that it doesn't need to be there. And there are various ways that people can be disqualified from immigration benefits. So of course, if they're inadmissible or disqualified for some other reason, that's a separate issue. But this is just applying and just trying to go through the process. And if they're being scammed out of thousands of dollars and being put through the trauma of having to go through deportation or removal proceedings, why would anybody trust that process? Why would anybody even bother to try in good faith when they know that they're just really being lied to, basically?
And if you don't care about it, who cares? They're not from here. Then some other group could one day say that exact same language to something that affects you.
Immigrants are the testing ground,
right?
Honestly. And just business practices as well, to the extent that this is a business because there's money being exchanged. Who's to say that other agencies wouldn't start to apply those same practices, those same standards that impact U.S. citizens,
right?
Whether it's the IRS, Veterans Affairs, there's other agencies that deal with with U.S. citizens or people who are not necessarily undocumented or of firm immigration status. So it impacts everybody because it's something that could eventually expand to other agencies, and we should not be allowing that as something that's acceptable in the U.S.
Right.
That's supposed to be for shady, scammy places or however people want to see that. We hold ourselves to a higher standard and we're really not living to it. I don't know if we ever did, but we're falling further behind than we've ever fucking been, I'll tell you that.
Well,
not ever. We've definitely been further behind.
Yeah.
Let me take that back. But we're really putting in a lot of effort to try to go as far back as possible.
Right. But I have faith in humanity. And I think there are more good people than bad. And I do think that sometimes we inevitably go through phases like this to force us to fix things, to force us to fix what's broken. And I think right now, given how unpopular this administration is, things can be fixed.
Whenever you're ready. Whenever everybody's ready, let's get to it.
I do think November will be a huge wake-up call. I do think that.
I hope so, pero vamos a ver.
Stay optimistic, Kimmy.
We will see.
Anyway.
Well, that's my rant on that, but also just wanted to put that out there and highlight it for people who may be interested in kind of some of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes with immigration and immigration processes and practices and departments. Let us know your thoughts or your comments on this. If you have questions about anything that we just talked about, let us know, and we hope to hear from you.
Yes, and before we go, I do want to say anyone who's listening who may be going through a process where you're waiting to hear something about an interview or any type of update, I would highly, highly, highly recommend that you go and check your case update through the USCIS general search engine, where you add your receipt number and just make sure that nothing has been scheduled for an interview, because you do not want to miss those interviews.
Yes, and then just to specify real quick, just to get into that a little bit more, tell people kind of how to access that. So this is available to you as long as you have your receipt for whatever you have applied for. The receipt at the top is going to have a receipt number. You go to uscis.gov, and then on that main page, you kind of scroll down a little bit, and there's on the right side, there's a link that says check case status or something like that. There's a hyperlink. Click on that, and then on that page, it's going to bring up a box that's going to ask you for your receipt number. You just type in your receipt number and then enter, and it'll show you if there's been any update or something scheduled or something. And if there has been an interview scheduled, it'll say on such and such date, interview was scheduled. And if it's been more than a week, follow up with USCIS and call them right away and just ask or inquire about where that notice is.
Right. So definitely call, be proactive about it. And if you want to get not have to scroll through the USCIS page, if you literally Google case status USCIS, it'll take you automatically to that page.
There you go.
Easy peasy. Alrighty, well, like Kimmy said, if you have any questions, feel free to email us at routetothepod@gmail.com. Comment, like, subscribe. If there are any episodes that or any topics related to immigration that you would like us to talk about, leave it in the comments section, and time permitting, we will discuss those in a future episode.
Indeed. Thank you so much. Until next time.
Until next time, God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye.